Ellis and Onega, both Kansas rail towns, both founded only 10 years apart. And yet, despite these obvious similarities, the two towns couldn't have been settled more differently. In 1867, the Kansas Pacific Railroad put a water tank on the future town site of Ellis and proclaimed it a division point because of its central location between Kansas City and Denver. By 1882, just 15 years later, the city of Ellis boasted of at least 7 public businesses or services, partially or completely funded by the Kansas Pacific and later the Union Pacific Rail Company. This included the Ellis House Hotel, Memorial Park, the UP Dam, the UP Ice House, Mount Hope Cemetery, and the first fire department. Even the town doctor was employed by the UP, and his office was in the UP Hotel. In contrast, across the state to the east, in Pottawatomie County, the town of Onega saw minimal railroad investment. In the town's first 38 years, the railroad was responsible for only 2 public businesses, the depot and an ice house. In fact, Mill Creek Township went to great lengths to help the financially floundering Kansas Central Railway make it to Onega. This aid came in the form of a bond issue that had to be met by December 2, 1877. The railroad had to lay track into Onega by this date in order to receive the bonds. On 4 o'clock that day, the train made it to Onega, just barely. Ties had been haphazardly laid on ungraded land with rails precariously spiked to them. Over the next year, construction essentially stopped, making Onega an end-of-the-line town until April 14, 1879, when the company was sold at foreclosure and reorganized. After this, construction resumed, and finally, in 1882, the rail line was completed to Miltonville for a total of 165 miles. Interestingly, Onega citizens were willing to pay to have access to a railroad, even considering its slightly less than reliable track record, whereas a desirable rail company was spending copious amounts of money to convince people in Ellis to stay. Why? The major difference likely lies in the combined efforts of timing and location. In Pottawatomie County, there were over 25 hamlets, communities, and towns before Onega was founded in 1877. In Ellis County, however, Fort Hays was the only settlement in the county when Ellis was created in 1867. And even this had been scaled back due to the abandonment of the Butterfield Overland Trail, which the fort had been built to protect. There was likely a striking difference between the two counties in accessibility of building resources and established roads and trails to transport them. In addition, Pottawatomie County had a 14-year advantage on Ellis in discovering what farming practices worked best in the area. Most importantly, some of Onega's first residents had already lived in the county for a time, and others likely came because of pre-existing ties to Pottawatomie County residents. Immigrants to Ellis had no previously established friends or family eagerly awaiting their arrival. They were the first to the area, and they had to start from scratch. Given the obvious disadvantages of building the first town in a county, it becomes clear why the Union Pacific invested so much in Ellis, especially when the importance of Ellis as a division point is taken into account. Conversely, in Pottawatomie County, an area already at capacity for ambitious town starters, establishing a rail connection was the best insurance for survival Onega could buy. On the track to settlement, one thing is clear: whether you are paying them or they are paying you, having a rail connection played a defining role in putting your town on the map.